All right, welcome back to the show. This is your Arise Exchange. A turbulent year for Nigeria's money and market is gradually winding down right now. In the outgoing year, both local and foreign investors have been whiplashed by a number of headwinds led in the main by the exchange rates, higher interest rates, and a stubborn inflation. And there is more. We'll get down to a review of Nigeria's monetary environment in 2024. Welcome my guest, Chukwu, who is a licensed dealer and the group CEO at Carry Asset Management. Great having you on the show again tonight.
Thank you, Boston, for having me. Good evening.
Thank you so much. We will really appreciate it. We're trying to connect to Ghana for the inaugural speech or acceptance speech of the president-elect, John Mahama. So just in case it came through, we'll get that into the show very quickly. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. We appreciate it. I'm sure we'll keep an eye on that. I'm sure you've got a foothold in Ghana as well as far as the market's concerned. So you're a Pan-African trader and dealer. But let's start with Nigeria's, give me a short overview of Nigeria's monetary environment for the year.
Well, both in the monetary environment was challenging in the year because we've seen a lot of topsy-turvy movement in, for instance, exchange rate. We saw exchange rate go as high as 1,900 around February this year, to drop to about 1,100 in March, and climb back to about 1,700 in July, on August, September, and October. But good thing, we saw the market recover last week, appreciate significantly last week. We saw the market bottom to the region of 1,500 and in that region. But unfortunately, between Saturday and today, we've seen a reversal of part reversal of the gains we saw last week. So in terms of foreign exchange market, we've seen very volatile movement. In terms of interest rate, we've seen consistent tightening by the monetary authorities. You saw that the Monetary Policy Committee at the last meeting increased the monetary policy rate by 25 basis points to 27.5%. We saw inflation that declined for two consecutive months or 3 consecutive months, only to reverse in the last month. We are now dealing with an inflation rate of about 3.8%. Of course, we've seen a higher inflation rate of about 34% previously. But in terms of monetary, so if you have to summarize the monetary environment, we'll say it had been a very volatile monetary environment this financial year.
But what role do you think did the central bank play in the money and markets this year, and with what impact?
Well, the central bank has been quite active in the money market environment, in the monetary environment. We've seen the central bank in the past, since the beginning of this year, the central bank has taken out about 12 trillion naira by way of treasury-based auction. They've taken out about 19 trillion naira from the market this year. In the past 6 weeks, the central bank has actually taken out about 2 trillion naira. So the central bank has actually been very aggressive in terms of taking out liquidity or trying to impact on the liquidity in the economy through a very aggressive tightening policy. We've seen, like I said earlier, the central bank had increased MPR rate to 27.5%. We've seen the central bank increase the cash reserve ratio of banks to 50%. And then we have a liquidity ratio of a region of 30%. So if you look at all these factors, you recognize that the central bank has actually done a lot to suck out liquidity from the system and see if that could moderate the inflationary pressure. Unfortunately, in as much as we've seen, like I said, we've seen flashes of gains in terms of exchange rate. Exchange rate appreciated in the month of March, appreciated last week. But the effort to fight inflation has not achieved as much desired result as many of us or even the monetary authority would have preferred. We've still seen inflation rate moving up. Of course, the pressure or the factor driving inflation are partly beyond the effectiveness, what the monetary policy tools can actually effectively curtail. And we're dealing with pass-through effect of exchange rate depreciation. We're dealing with food inflation as a result of insecurity in the major food base of the country. Those 2 factors can hardly be addressed with monetary tools.
Let's shift gears slightly in the investment market. How would you describe the SEC role in the market for this year? At least we've got a new ISA, at least coming through.
Well, we've seen the SEC in terms of course, SEC has been quite supportive and has also been playing its key role as an apex capital market regulator in this year. I mean, if you look at it, a number of banks have come to the market to raise capital to meet the new capital requirement of banks. According to SEC, they said about 2 trillion naira has so far been invested by investors in the market. But beyond that, the market development efforts of SEC is still going on. We've seen SEC working on alternative assets such as cryptocurrency as an acceptable tradable instrument. There are already regulatory guidelines, exposures on how to effectively manage the trading on cryptocurrency. We've seen SEC encouraging other asset classes. Mutual funds had actually you'll be getting a lot of approvals if you apply for SEC to approve your mutual fund application. So, but most importantly, SEC has been quite active in terms of approving the opening of offers. Of course, none of these offers have been fully concluded in the sense that allotment had not been approved by either the central bank, which also, because most of the offers are bank-related. But beyond that, we're also seeing a lot of activity in the money market instrument, particularly the CP space, where the likes of MTN, the likes of Dangote Sugar, the likes of Dangote Cement have come with very big ticket commercial papers in the market. And those are all within the regulatory purview of SEC.
So if you put the trial of exchange rate, inflation, interest rate together for this year, would you say the market has been good, not so good, or a bad year?
Boss, it depends on which of them, of those instruments one is active in. If you have been active in the exchange rate space, of course, you have FX traders in the economy.
I'm not active in any of the markets, by the way.
And then
you are active in all the markets. I'm not active in any. So that's why I'm the one asking the questions.
Are you not in the capital market?
No, I'm not. I mind everybody. I mind everybody's business, and I mind your business. But I'm sure, I know you investors will be thinking, is my cup full, half empty, or is empty for the year? Please go ahead.
Boss, we need to interrogate that further. But back to your question, if you look at the money market players, the banks, they have actually been smiling to their, grinning from ear to ear because the banks have actually played the market effectively and profitably. If you look at the interest rate environment, today we are seeing commercial papers in the region of 30% effective yield for the 270-day instrument. We are seeing effective yield on 364-day treasury bills at over 30%. And the banks are being intermediators in the market. They are taking full advantage of that. They are not able to pass on the full benefit of this increase in interest rate on the depositors because depositors hardly do not have so much of market bargaining competencies or leverage as to compare the banks to pay as much as they are reviewing their interest rate on their loans and other investable assets. So the banks are making a lot of money from firm-based activities. The banks also made a lot of money from exchange rate-related instruments. So for those institutions like banks, they are taking full advantage of the money market environment and the exchange rate environment. For the real sector operators, they are actually at the holding the short end of the stick. Because if you look at real sector operators, you will see many of them are declaring losses as a result of exchange rate movement. Many of them are struggling to meet their funding obligations as well as shift in exchange rate as well as increase in interest rate. That's why I said it depends on which side of the pendulum you stand, and because the pendulum is swinging in favor of those who are arbitrators or whose business is in arbitrage, like the banks that are enjoying the benefit of arbitraging in a high interest rate environment.
Well, do you think that we have enough clarity in terms of monetary policies so far this year? Do you think we have enough clarity in terms of policies and actions for this year to give us a sense of what to expect in 2025?
Bosin, I don't think we do. And I say that this because we've seen a deluge of policy pronouncements and policy guidelines and regulation by the central bank. And because of the multiplicity of these regulatory pronouncements, it'd be difficult for anybody to actually guess what the monetary authorities will do next year. Of course, the monetary authorities are dealing with a very thankless job, a very difficult job. Like I said, they are deploying virtually all monetary tools to reduce the level of liquidity, to reduce the velocity of circulation of currency in the economy as we're able to curtail inflation pressures. But unfortunately, inflation pressures are coming from factors outside the control of monetary authorities. So, and then you have to deal with the fact that the monetary authorities are also trying to regulate the banks. Next year, we'll be dealing with probably an uptick in inflation rate in non-performing loans as a result of the elapsing of a forbearance that was granted by the central bank to the banks as it relates to providing for non-performing loans or restructuring loans that have been negatively affected by movement in exchange rates. So the central bank will have to deploy another set of tools to deal with a possible increase in non-performing loans when this forbearance in terms of restructuring of those loans elapse.
What else are you looking to see in the new year, 2025? 2024, of course, was the first full year, as it were, technically speaking, for the central bank governor and his team. And then for the SEC, it's going to be 1 year next year by this time for Emomotimi Agama, the Director General at the SEC and his team. So do you think the market will have a bit of a clearer picture of things? How much developments are you looking to see from the fiscal side that will most likely impact on the money and the markets? Very quickly.
Well, I think the major thing we have to look at is the level of budget deficit next year. The government has projected about 13.8 trillion naira as budget deficit. The impact of how that will be funded, whether it will be funded from the capital market, whether it will be funded by ways and means of the central bank, which will inject a lot of liquidity and possibly upturn the efforts of the central bank to reduce the level of liquidity in the economy. And to what extent can the fiscal authorities improve crude production by addressing the issue of insecurity? To what extent the fiscal authorities address insecurity in the major food belts of the country, particularly in northern regions, as to increase food production? These factors are what will determine the effectiveness of monetary policy tools next year. The fiscal space has to also move into the level of overdrive the monetary authorities have been working in the past 1 year, so as to address the gap in terms of food supply that has led to high food inflation, to improve crude production that will help us generate more foreign exchange earnings from our normal operating activities, where our normal operating activities are our export of crude. And that will, to a reasonable extent, help us moderate the pressure on the exchange rate and, if possibly, see an appreciation, a sustained appreciation of the local currency. These are two critical factors that are necessary for us to have more effectiveness in monetary policy tools deployment.
All right. We appreciate that. Very robust analysis from you as always. Thank you very much. Do have a great evening. Johnson Chukwu, market professional and group CEO at Carrier Asset Management. We appreciate that.